Okay, so welcome everyone. It's 5:32, so in the interest of time, we're going to get started. This is Crystal Lazard. I'm with the Institute for Local Government. If you don't know me, I'm one of the facilitators for the Fresno Community Steering Committee. My colleague Hannah Salmakovich is on as well, and we're so excited to see so many people here. So far, it looks like we got 50 participants, but we're only 2 minutes past the start time, so I imagine there'll be more joining. As we're getting started, I just want to remind everyone to please rename yourself if you can. So your name displays with your actual name and your organization if necessary. And we're going to go over, we have a really packed agenda tonight. So tonight, after the welcome and introduction, I'm going to pass it to Vernon from CARB, and he's going to do an update on the hearing resolution from February 13th. And then we're going to go to the City of Fresno. Scott is going to provide a presentation on heavy-duty truck rerouting and an update there with some really good information. And then Brad Dawson at the Air District is going to do an air monitoring update. And then Brian, also with Air District, will be giving an incentive update. And then Laura Marmesh from Olivine will provide some information on a really cool program, an energy efficiency program, and how it can benefit residents within Fresno. And then we'll wrap up and do next steps.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got a message from Estela. She's asking for a reminder of how to go to the Spanish language, because the instructions here are in English.
Yes, let me scroll down. Thank you, Naomi. So here's a reminder. Before we really get going, I want to make sure everybody can hear. So you're going to click into select Spanish language. And if you are moving into the Spanish language channel, you're also going to click on the mute original audio. So there's 2 steps for that. If you're staying in the English channel, you don't have to do that extra step. But if you're in the Spanish channel, you can select mute original audio as a way of not having both audios at the same volume, making it difficult to hear.
And if you're in English, regardless, you should still go into interpretation. It's that same little globe button and select English. So either way, you should be in English or in Spanish.
Okay, Crystal, can I interrupt just for a brief moment? Because we're having some technical difficulties in the Spanish section right now. And so Rain has asked me to come in, and you're going a little too fast, especially with us trying to go through this right now. It's hard for Reina to keep up with this. So can I go ahead and do the Spanish portion of this right now? Okay, perfect. So, Estela, en este momento, y no sé si alguien más que esté hablando español pueda hacer esto, pero si necesitan interpretación, abajo en la, nomás que no tengo acceso yo al documento que ella tiene, pero si usted ve, está el icono que dice interpretación, va a seleccionar a ese y luego va a poder pasar donde dice español, o tiene una banderita que está como amarilla y roja. Y así oprima ese botón, le va a dar la opción en español o va a poder escucharlo en español. Y luego tiene que, para solamente escuchar la información en español, tiene que seleccionar el documento o la información que dice Mute Original Audio, que significa que van a tener que silenciar el audio original. Entonces, si hacen eso, van a escuchar solamente a Reina. ¿Alguna pregunta de alguien ahorita? Si no, me voy a ir otra vez al canal de español para estar con Reina.
No, Estela todavía no había podido, so yo le estoy ayudando vía chat.
Okay. I think we're good. Thank you, Crystal.
Buenas tardes a todos. Buenas tardes, voy entrando apenas, perdón.
Can I take a moment real quick?
Yeah, Lisa, is that you?
Yeah. Could you guys do me a favor?
Buenas tardes a todos. Nomás quería decir si no tienen un número de teléfono para mejor unirme a la videollamada porque no puedo entender el inglés en vía Zoom.
Okay. 2 things. Could you please send out a hard copy of the list of meeting dates and times? Because I thought this meeting was tomorrow and it's not. So that would be really great. And also, every time I keep asking you guys for hard copies of things, and I either get, you know, my bad, or they get delivered an hour before this meeting. And, you know, I shouldn't have to remind you guys that I need hard copies, because it takes me a while to read until I can get in to get my new glasses, you know, or my cataract surgery, whichever is going to happen. But I would appreciate it if I got hard copies of presentations at least a day or 2 in advance, so I can make my notes.
Estela, a ver, déjate, voy a tratar de...
That's all. Thank you.
No, that's noted. And just for everyone's full information, this Zoom meeting is being recorded. So everything that's said verbally is being captured. All the chats that happen, private and open to everybody, are also being recorded. So FYI. And we are also live streaming on Facebook right now. So lots of ways for everything to be captured. Lisa, yes, that's definitely been noted.
¿Cómo hacerle? Porque, ok. Sí, es que estaba yo tratando de explicarte, pero ok.
Okay. Good. Okay, so Naomi, when you're talking, yeah.
I have a question. Estela, it's still not able to do that, because I understand what happened. She's not in front of a computer. That's why she's trying to see how, if there's a number she can call, so she can only listen to Reina in Spanish.
We have an optional line that can get set up. Heather, is there any way we can send that to Reina and Estela?
Let me work on that. Yes. And she wants to call in to hear English?
No, Spanish.
Okay.
Pero sí, en el teléfono también se puede poner en español.
Okay. I will call Oralia and ask her how to do it, because I have not done that. So sorry.
Okay. Naomi, thank you for stepping in. Heather, thank you for troubleshooting on your side. We're going to start moving forward, and then we'll double check in a couple minutes to make sure that everybody's still here and can hear everything. Okay, so moving on. I just quickly went over the meeting agenda tonight. It's very full. But there is going to be some time at the end of this meeting. I'd like to start, as a regular practice with everybody, soliciting future upcoming meeting agenda items from folks. So as a normal business of practice, we're going to start doing that. So you'll see it at the end of this meeting. We'll leave some time to solicit ideas and suggestions from folks on the Zoom meeting. So, okay. Going through the etiquette one more time, just to make sure that everybody can participate and knows what we're going to do. So we already went over the renaming yourself. Thank you in advance. If you joined a little bit late, please rename yourself with your first and last name and affiliate organization if necessary. So we all know who's all on here. As a general courtesy, we're going to ask that everyone stays on mute unless you're planning to speak. If you were only on the phone and not on the Zoom, you can use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. During the presentations, which there will be several tonight, we're going to say, ask you to use the blue raise your hand function, which is under your
participants thing. Mine's different. Under your participants, there's an option there to raise this little blue hand. And that's going to be how you indicate that you have a question for the presenter. Hannah's going to help manage the Q&A during the presentation. But if you have a question or a comment or just a thought that comes up during the presentation portion, you're welcome to send out something via the chat box. We did this last week in Stockton and it worked fairly well, where other Air District staff were able to answer some of the questions that were sent out in chat. So feel free to do that as well. And we'll just have there's folks monitoring both the chat box and obviously if you want to voice your question, you can as well. And to do that by the phone alone, you would push *9 to raise your hand. So that's how we're going to do that. And again, the chat box is really a way for you to communicate with each other. I know this is a new platform, and I really appreciate everybody's patience as we're all learning to do this together. Clearly, this is new technology, and it's not perfect. So I just really appreciate everyone's patience. So that being said, thanks for participating in this virtual meeting. We're going to continue to do things virtually until we hear otherwise. We're following the state and local government guidelines and health requirements. So, you know, thank you so much for hanging in there with everybody. I'm going to ask folks, there's a lot of folks on here. We have 58 people, and most of you do know each other. So instead of having everybody say their name, I'm actually going to ask folks to just take a second, and under your participants link, or the participants with the little people icon, you can scroll through and see who's in the meeting. Most of you know each other, since this is, what is this, meeting number 21, I think, Fresno meeting number 21. So just take a second at now or at later in the meeting and you know, generally be familiar with who all is on here. But in the interest of time, and because you do know each other fairly well, we're not going to do individualized self-introductions tonight. Okay? So with that, I'm going to pass it to Ryan.
All right, thank you so much, Crystal, and thank you everybody, all 57 participants tonight. We can't thank you enough. You know, everybody's doing their best with the COVID-19 pandemic and making adjustments. You know, we definitely want to move forward with the implementation of the community emission reduction program that everybody works so hard to get completed and approved by the Air Resources Board. And we just want to continue that progress for the betterment of everybody in the South Central Fresno community and in the larger Fresno area as well. We're going to continue to provide you know, really robust agendas with a lot of different topics. And as Crystal mentioned, this is going to be a process. It's going to be a growing learning process for all of us. This is probably not the best that we're going to be. We're definitely going to get better, and we're going to strive to make these as productive and beneficial as possible. And it's going to take a lot of feedback from all the members in these groups to explain to us how we can do this better and how we can make this a better process for everybody involved. And so like I said, we're just really thankful for everybody's willingness to continue in this important work. And let's get started. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. And I'm going to pass it over to Janet next. She is our community co-host this evening. If you recall, back in March, when we had that last in-person meeting, she volunteered. So she worked with the Air District staff to create this agenda tonight. So Janet.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I want to reiterate what's already been said. Thank everyone for spending the time and working through this, and hopefully we can make the whole area better. That is our goal, to improve the air quality and improve our working relationships. So I'm going to be brief and pass it back so we can see how the resolutions and everything else is going.
Great, thanks, Janet. Okay, so Vernon, we're going to you next to give an update on the CARB hearing resolution. And again, sort of another thanks to those of you that stuck it through that very long 8-hour meeting back in February on the 13th when CARB had their SERP adoption hearing down in Chapter. So Vernon, passing it to you.
Thanks, Crystal. Yeah, this is Vernon Hughes. I'm in the CARB OCAP group, Office of Community Air Protection. So just giving you an update on the South Central Fresno, the website, under steering committee documents, there is the resolution that the CARB board passed is provided there. Just FYI for those of you that aren't aware of that. And so what that resolution includes is when the CARB board acts, it acts on a resolution and passes the resolution. So staff from CARB, we put together a staff report initially on the South Central Fresno SERP that had some recommendations. The resolution that went into the board hearing included those recommendations to our board. That was part of the staff recommendation to for the board to consider the SERP. And then, as you know, as Crystal just mentioned, lots of great discussion at the board meeting. And through that discussion, there were some edits and some modifications to the resolution. And then the board ended up passing that resolution. A number of areas that there were some modifications to the resolution that went in. But given that we only have a few minutes on the agenda, rather than walking through any sort of details, I wanted to open it up. I guess, are there any questions on that resolution? Again, it's what CARB board passed and passing or approving the South Central Fresno SERP.
Thanks, Vernon. So we now have 62 people on the Zoom meeting. So I'm going to ask folks to, again, use the blue hand to raise your hand under your participant function. There should be a way for you to indicate that you would like to ask a question. And Hannah and I are going to help unmute you and ask any questions of Vernon in regards to this. Ivanka? Let's see, I see you first.
Hello, thanks, Vernon. I think the first question I would have is regarding timelines of some of the resolutions that were passed. There's a few different resolutions, and specifically with the rules and regulations updates, are there any specifics that you can give yet as to just the deadlines of any of those resolutions that have to come first?
Yeah, so on that particular one, I would imagine that the steering committee would want to talk about priorities on stationary source, what sort of priorities the committee might have, and also weigh in the district's status on their review of stationary sources and establish some form of priority with that particular topic.
Specifically with the rules and the regulations, by the end of the year. So do you have any recommendations to the Air District yet as to where we should start? Or is that really going to be just up to the steering committee and the Air District?
Yeah, I think that's a good discussion between the steering committee and the Air District.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa has another hand. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute Lisa.
Hi, yeah, I just had a real quick question. What were the changes?
So there's, to go through each, I can high level give you in a short amount of time.
What were the changes between what they turned in and what was given back? What were the highlights?
So there were some on just broad groupings here. Incentive funding, or I would say the truck route study, and establishing MOU with the city. What Ivanka just mentioned on stationary source review. There was some discussion on getting some of those reviews done by the end of the year. Land use covered kind of a linkage to the freight handbook in terms of using that as a guidance mechanism on reporting back to the CARB board on a semi-annual basis, and then some discussion on developing a form of a template for report backs and keeping the steering committee apprised on status. So that's just real high level. That's kind of where, again, lots of discussion, as you're well aware of, that occurred at that meeting. And so these changes reflect that discussion.
I didn't know what happened at that meeting because I could not attend because it was super cold, super long, super late, and just not ADA accommodating. So I was just kind of wondering. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
We have another hand from Ivanka.
Okay.
Regarding the resolutions, I was hoping that we would be able to go into a little bit more detail tonight with the committee. I just think that a lot of the folks that are on here need to be refreshed. It's been a little bit of time since we've actually discussed that. And as you know, because of that was it was a very long meeting, and we did go into what I think is more than just high level, because they were so important to our emission reduction plan. So I, as a committee member, am expecting that we'll be going into talking more in detail, maybe not tonight, but definitely the truck reroute, like you said, the freight handbook, and a process for reporting back. That includes allowing the steering committee. My understanding is we will now, as a steering committee, actually have some accountability in that report back to CARB as well. It's not just going to be on the air district. So the CARB actually gets opinions directly from community as well as the air district. And the rules and regulations, I think, needs a little bit of time in its own agenda item, because it's a lot. We want to make sure, I think some of the other community members on the phone might go into it a little more, but they're making sure that the correlation of rules and regulations that we've somewhat talked about in this past year correlate directly to some of the main concerns and complaints that are coming through in the community, whether it's the idling, the cars going really fast in the streets that are smoking, whatever it may be, the on the ground issues that have not yet been resolved with the current rules and regulations. And that gives us that opportunity to actually go more into those rules and regulations, see if they need to be a little bit tweaked and improved, or if there's just not a rule that addresses the concerns of the community and opens that up to creating a brand new rule.
So Vernon's writing that down. And also, again, I know everyone's heard me say this a couple times, but this is all being recorded and transcribed, and we'll still do our normal meeting notes as well. But Ivanka, thank you for that suggestion. That is definitely captured many different ways right now. Also live streamed on Facebook. So, Vernon, is there anything you want to say in response before we move forward?
No, it sounds like there's more discussion needed, and really prioritization of topics for the agenda with the steering committee.
And Ryan, we can see your hand. Would you like to chime in?
Yeah, thanks. Ivanka, we definitely hear you. I think we have an opportunity, and we definitely want to listen to the community steering committee when it comes to putting together agendas. And the rules and regulations has been brought up several times, so we are looking to provide a larger update in a future meeting to discuss what we currently are doing and what our plans are, and getting feedback from the community steering committees. Also, in regards to enforcement, I think that is a good topic that I think at the end of the meeting we will talk about having that in possibly as an item next month if there's interest from the committee to do that.
Great, thanks, Ryan. And again, we are going to touch on future meeting agenda items at the end of this meeting, but this is great, and it's super good to hear. I'm going to turn it next to Scott from the City of Fresno. Scott Mosier, he's going to do an update on heavy-duty truck rerouting studies. Scott, go ahead and share your screen and your presentation.
Okay, good evening, and let me see if we can get this. All right, everyone should be able to see that. Well, it's my pleasure this evening to have a chance to share an update with all of you. Ordinarily, I've enjoyed being part of the steering committee as one of the City of Fresno representatives. Public Works, of course, being lots of things from traffic to things like bike lanes, sidewalks, pavement conditions, and we work closely with the Air District. We also implement a number of capital improvement projects throughout the city, including the AB 617 area. So tonight I want to talk more about the truck rerouting study. And we'll start walking through some of the materials. So just, earlier, some of the speakers' comments mentioned the truck rerouting study, and indeed that was identified as a high priority for the community, both through our AB 617 efforts, and then also previously the city had led an effort with the Southwest Fresno Specific Plan, and which also captured those concerns and a desire to move that forward. Thankfully, there is opportunity through the adopted SERP to implement that, and some funding could be made available. And again, for those perhaps not as familiar with this particular issue, again, the goal being to reroute trucks away from certain corridors with more sensitive populations and receptors to perhaps other corridors that would be more suitable. So let's talk about what's involved in that process. What actually regulates where trucks are operating or where they are not functioning. And in the City of Fresno, that is accomplished by ordinance. Meaning it's not just a staff decision, it's not just a council resolution, but it's actually an ordinance, which is really like city municipal law incorporated into the municipal code. Last time that was updated was September 2005 and established the truck routes that are in place today. So to modify those routes is what we'll talk about. All right, so with that process, what's really needed to change those routes? And again, I think a lot of us are all within the steering committee assuming that is a desirable outcome, and that's really where we're headed. That's what we've heard from the community. So what is necessary to accomplish those changes? First item really is preparation of a study by a professional transportation consulting firm. And that's obviously not done in a vacuum at all. A really, really big component of that will be the community and stakeholder engagement. And by community stakeholder, really we mean residents, also businesses, whether they be large or small in the area, and then also stakeholders, other public agencies. We have school districts with school sites within the area. Another agency, of course, the city is our partner agency, Fresno County, because in some cases, certain concepts, certain routes suggested by members of the community would involve rerouting trucks from, for example, city streets onto county roads outside of the city, Fresno city limits. And so out of that engagement, which we would anticipate to be, again, the major piece of this effort, there would be analysis. We've got to put together perhaps what might be differing community recommendations. Residents on Street A recommend the trucks be rerouted to Street B, and perhaps a mile or two away, it's just the reverse. And so how do we reconcile that? So there'd be analysis and then recommendations that would come back. Out of that as well would be an environmental document under California law. CEQA is the environmental process, and there would need to be an environmental assessment done to support ultimately an ordinance change that would come back to the Fresno City Council. So components, what goes into that study? Again, we talked about community engagement. City of Fresno is happy to manage that study. What would go into it, of course, would be collection of traffic counts. And let me pause there and say that one of our critical path items really to completing a study is having traffic counts that would stand up, that would make sense. Right now, obviously, with the COVID-19 situation, what cities and counties have noted, typically traffic counts are down about 40% overall. So we'd look for that to come back to some semblance of normal. Also, we, as just a matter of practice in the industry, we do not conduct traffic counts during the summer when schools are out. So, August, September could potentially be a very good time for those counts. We talked about, a review of the roadway conditions, potential changes to the truck routes, perhaps eliminating some routes or proposing brand new routes. And in that, for example, if trucks are to be rerouted to another street, are those intersections able to handle that? Are there perhaps power poles in the way on a corner? Will trucks have difficulty making certain turns on new routes that are proposed? One of the things that we talked about as a steering committee was the funding. And of course, AB 617 can be a potential funding source, and I really appreciate the conversations and meetings just that we've had internally. Kudos to Jessica and Ryan for the time spent with the city. What we would propose is, again, as a way to partner and contribute some additional funding and effort into this, is that the City of Fresno, that we could provide the traffic counts with our staff as an in-kind service. That's something that would not be funded by AB 617 or Air District or other dollars. The city could provide that. That's roughly a $66,000 value for those extensive counts throughout the AB 617 area here in Fresno. So the real funding need would be for the consultant cost, our project management and contract administration efforts. So, and I'll just go on to the next slide, but we might come back and talk a little bit more about what that could look like, because the scope of that study and the fee, the total cost, have to align. So what are the next steps? Yes.
Sorry to stop. I should have clarified this up front. So we're actually going to hold on the questions and let Scott go through his presentation, and then we'll circle back. So Eric, I see your hand and I see your question, and it's fabulous. I'm just going to let Scott go through this, and then we're going to circle back to the questions of clarification. So feel free to raise your hand. Your blue hand won't go down, or keep sending questions in via the chat. We'll just circle back.
Perfect. Yes, and thanks for clarifying. We will circle back. But let me wrap up here briefly. Yeah. So next steps, there's a lot of interest in getting this accomplished. One is to finalize that funding plan collaboratively between the city and the district. Also to whenever public agencies work together, there's a cooperative agreement prepared. We would need both board and city council approval of that. As far as the timeline goes, then that would set the stage for a request for qualifications type process, where we go through and select a consultant in a competitive process, get that contract approved over about a 12-week period. Again, I mentioned traffic counts. That's one of the early items needed. And then we envision that community engagement and preparing the study, that complete process, taking 10 to 12 months overall. And at that conclusion, then that feasibly could lead to an ordinance change and different truck routes being in place. I do want to highlight also, as far as truck routes, those are restrictions on through routes. If, for example, if there's a business that is on a corridor, we really cannot take the truck route entirely away from that street if that particular business does need to get in and out of their site. But certainly this changes the routes and the through movements of those trucks. So, and with that, glad to answer any questions.
Yes, we have two hands. One is from Eric, and then I have Big Pack 85, which I will help you to rename you. But let me go first with Eric, and then we're gonna go to Big Back 85, and then to
Hi, Scott. This is Eric Payne. I'm a resident and a member of the steering committee. And my question is specific to the implementation. What is the timeline that the city has to begin the study? Because I did hear you mention getting the MOU in place. But I think I'm aware that the SERP plan has been approved since late January, early February. So I was just kind of wondering when would that process begin?
Eric, great question. So really the timeline would be we need to, between the Air District and the city, we do need to put a cooperative agreement together. That typically takes a couple of months to put together. And then the consultant selection process would require about 3 months to put in place. And we want to be confident that the board and the city council are agreeable to moving forward. So really, we're talking a couple months to get, as you mentioned, MOU or co-op agreement in place, about 3 months to get the consultant on board. Meantime, the city can conduct traffic counts. And then after that, we're talking about 10 to 12 months to really wrap up community engagement, a study, and an ordinance change. So those would really be all added together. We'd be talking about the latter half of 2021 to complete that process.
Oh, that's great. And I guess what I was trying to listen for was, does the city have a timeline for when that commitment will take place for the MOU? Will you bring the MOU to the Air District? Will the Air District bring the MOU to you? Is it this mutual conversation that's taking place now, or is it a conversation that's going to take place later?
That is a mutual conversation taking place now. Generally speaking, the agency who is providing funding or administering a program has a form of agreement that's utilized. So, for example, in this case, generally the City of Fresno would look to the Air District to see, is there a form of agreement that you want to utilize, like a standard contract. The respective attorneys typically review that, reach agreement, and we move a staff report and agenda item forward to the respective boards. But as the City of Fresno, I can share, we're eager to get started. This is a great project.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I see a series of hands, and I see that Ryan raised his hand. He probably would like to chime in too.
Did you get me?
And then Sylvester, yes, we see you. You've been having your hand for a while, so we'll go to Ryan and then next to you.
I'll be real quick, Mr. Hall. I just wanted to reiterate the district's position on this. We understand this is a priority for the Community Steering Committee. We've been having active and ongoing conversations with the City of Fresno to make sure that we are moving on this as quickly as we can. So,
thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm up now. Crystal?
You're good.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I just want to thank the committee. I want to thank Scott for his presentation. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all the folks on the committee and from the agency that have kept this issue alive. I haven't been around for about 6 months, and this is one of my pet peeves, is the truck rerouting issue. I come to everyone tonight in a great deal of pain and agony and frustration, which we all probably share in throughout the different trials that we have to go through in life. But I've been focused on the suffering of my community and the people in that community. And I can't carry the burden of the entire nation or the entire world, but I can, share with you guys the burden of carrying that community. It is a tremendous amount of agony when you walk through my neighborhood and see the condition that it's in and the condition that the people are in. And as we talk about putting together a process to lighten the pollution burden on our area, that's just a tip of the iceberg. No one on this call is responsible directly for the conditions of impoverished neighborhoods across America. But we know how these neighborhoods got the way they are. They all got there by design. None of this stuff that exists on this planet that man has and woman has created is not by design and development. And our neighborhood got that way by design. And we know all the different types of tools that America has used to create that design of systematic technical discrimination across all sectors of social economic phenomenon. As I say that, Scott, I just want to ask you the question. I asked you guys to bring back up the slides because, as you say, you wanted to complete the presentation, but you go through the presentation and there's 20 things in there. You can't keep all 20 of them and can't write notes down that fast. So if you'd be kind enough to go back to the slide on the criteria that is used to change an ordinance. There's a list of them, the community, not the engagement, the analysis. Where's the next one, if you will? The traffic counts. Okay. If you look at this slide, everyone, where do you see anything about the measuring the pain and suffering? Where is there anything there about the death? Where is there anything about the percentage of cardiovascular rate? Where is there anything in that criteria about the asthma rate of our children? My cousin just died a month ago from asthma. She lives on Drummond, a half a block off of Jensen. 90% of her family has asthma. She's lived there for 40 some years. So Scott, if we know that folks that live on that end of town die 20 years earlier than folks that live on the other end of town where these trucks are not routed, we know some of it's from gunshots. We know some of it's from, lack of access to medical care. But we know a large percentage of it is due to pollution, asthma, cardiovascular. So why aren't some of this criteria on here for you guys to be able to admit and pinpoint and say, yes, by design, we created an area of town that pollutes on its citizens, a certain percentage more than it does on its other citizens through these trucks. We're all intelligent people. Most of you guys are much more intelligent than me, scientifically and otherwise. I'm a common sense, blue collar kind of guy. But not to have something on there to speak to the pain and suffering that's in the community that's being caused by this, to put it in a systematic format, around traffic counts, roadway conditions, those don't speak to the real reason this needs to be changed. The reason this needs to be changed is because it's killing people. And it's killing us at a higher rate than anyone else in the nation. So I just want to ask you guys, let's don't sugarcoat this criteria. You guys start admitting and identifying and telling the world and the country and the community what we're doing and what we've done and put the numbers in front of our people. You know?
Thanks so much.
Add cardiovascular rate, okay? You know, add those things to this criteria.
I mean, I really appreciate your perspective, and I'm deeply sorry to hear about the loss of a family member. This is an issue that's critically important, and it's exactly why 617 was designed. You know, Scott is hearing you. I know there's not a lot we can do right now in this meeting, but that's an incredibly important perspective and literally why we're here. So Scott, I'm going to give it to you for a quick response if you would like to. I also see Ryan's hand, so I think he might want to jump in. And then in the interest of time, I do want to move forward. Lisa, Ivanka, Venice, Naomi, all have their hands up as well. And we're already kind of over time on this agenda item. So Scott, if you don't mind just being brief, but.
Yeah. Well, this is Scott. I just wanted to say, perhaps I completely respect the concerns from Mr. Hall. That's really, I mean, why we're talking about this as a priority. And perhaps back to this slide, you know, what we could have done is, you know, where that bullet point of residents, community engagement, I mean, that's really like an all caps, bold, underline residents. So all of those concerns really come out in that area. The community input to this, what are the needs? What are the desires?
You know, you guys don't have on there that we have a $400 million project being built on that thoroughfares and things of that nature, you know, to change our community, to cut down on vehicle miles traveled. You know, that needs to be there. It needs to be referenced, so it gives you more, you know, criteria to leverage, as you know, for in front of the council for the change. You know, we don't have to have trucks. And I think also, if you will, Washington Union Middle School is looking at moving their middle school up on that area as well. So now you got the City College campus coming in there. You have another middle school coming in there. You have residents moving in there. There's all sort of other criteria. I guess that would be caught under the traffic counts, if you will.
I think I have a solution for you guys, actually. Anybody want to hear it?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. Besides the questions I have, and I know I'll wait in line, but I think your solution is that you need to add another bullet point. You need to have a section that talks about social justice issues. You need to add, under that social justice, you need to have a discussion on health information from the community. You need to also talk about the percentage of sidewalks that are available along these routes or proposed routes or whatever you want to change. And you also need to have a more detailed discussion on roadway sharing of how do pedestrians interact with these big trucks, whether it's air quality, where it's asthma rates, where it may be accidents or near misses of children, adults, the elderly, the homeless. I think you need to have a bullet point of a section that says social justice or environmental justice, however you want to put it.
Thanks, Lisa, for that suggestion. I know you also had a question. I'm going to try to move us along just so we don't get behind. Would you mind sharing your question?
I actually have 4 questions. The first question is, how much money do you think you need, ballpark, and what's the split going to be? How will the COVID, what I'm calling the COVID depression recession, going to change the number of trucks as we enter into an economic depression? Will the committee have inputs on the consultants and basically the contract that's going to be let? Will there be a couple of people on the committee from the community that are going to say, yeah, we want to make sure these elements are in there because they address our needs? And what about the producers EIR project? Will that be also included in this route truck rerouting study? Because, you know, they're asking for a relinquishment of H Street. That's all my questions.
Lots of great questions. So Lisa, I think that's one reason why, you know, we're here with an update at the committee, and this feedback this evening is very helpful. Well, let me say, as far as the cost of the study, the more components we include into the study as kind of background materials, such as, for example, let's say sidewalks, lack of sidewalks, you know, the more we put into the study, the higher the cost is, and perhaps the less funding available for other projects that would have an air emission benefit in the area. But that's, I'm really stealing the Air District's thunder here on that one, so I don't want to get into that too much. But things like, for example, sidewalks. We have in City of Fresno an active transportation plan that already shows existing sidewalks, where they're proposed, where there are gaps, where there are priorities. So we may decide to say, let's save a little bit of money and let's reference the ATP document. Let's have that available, and have that information kind of augment this study. You know, a probable cost range for something like this is probably in the range of $200,000 to $300,000, depending upon those final scope components to it. As far as producers is concerned, there has been discussion. I am not personally aware of a time frame for an EIR to be released.
It's supposed to be early summer.
I have heard that as a possible time frame, but I would see that if there is an EIR on the street, if that is a potential project for H Street closure, then certainly a truck rerouting study would note that, and you know, not do that in a vacuum, would not ignore that. So that's a great point that you brought that up.
Okay, I know we're over time, so in the interest of that, do we have one more quick question we can ask of Scott? And then I also would just encourage folks, he's here throughout the duration of the meeting, so feel free to send your comment to Scott specifically or to everyone via the chat. And Scott, if you feel comfortable, you're welcome to respond also via chat so everyone can see it. And
he also did not address my other question about what do you think the truck numbers are going to be as we enter into depression?
I wish I had better information on that. I can tell you what the city and what Caltrans has observed to date, which is passenger traffic being down over 40%, but actual commercial truck traffic only being down about 10%. However, depending upon how long shelter in place, what happens with the economy, each sector of the economy, both of those numbers could vary from what's happening today.
And are you open to some people in the committee helping you pick a consultant, or at least talking to them about the consultant?
Let the city and the Air District have a little more conversation about that. We have not discussed the composition of a selection committee thus far. So
okay, thank you.
Good question.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Lisa. I see Kimberly and Naomi, you had your hand up at one point. Do either of you want to still ask Scott a question, or would you be more comfortable moving into the chat and we go forward?
My question is what is the city's plan for real, authentic community engagement? And two, is the city prepared to hold virtual meetings due to the chance of a second outbreak of COVID-19?
And I do have, I have a follow-up question that I would like to add, and he could answer both. My quick question was, are you engaging the city council members of the area that, you know, covers that part of where that rerouting study would happen?
Let me work to address all those. So in terms of community engagement, again, I'd emphasize, I would see that as the major component of the study. So that would be something similar to the South Central specific plan efforts, to the AB 617 community engagement efforts. The selected consulting firm would typically have a firm, a company helping them really who specializes in community engagement. We'd be talking about bilingual outreach materials, because the goal again is really engagement there. There may be people on a certain route who have no idea this discussion is occurring, and they need to be engaged and not just have a city council vote one day and all of a sudden trucks start showing up on a different street and they say, how did this happen? That's not what we'd want to do. And absolutely the council members in the areas and their chiefs of staff would be engaged. They are very aware of the concerns and these prospects, and they would be included as well.
Thanks, Scott. I know there were other parts of those questions. I'm hoping that we can move forward. And Scott, if you can respond to Naimeen's point and another part of Kimberly's point, that would be great. And if Naimeen and Kimberly, if you can send yours in chat, if you haven't already, although I think you have, we have the record. And again, all of this will be in the meeting summary as well.
Hey, Crystal, I'm going to interject here, and it's kind of a timeout, I think. We want moving forward into implementation for this process to be different than it started in that first year. And that means this steering committee has the right to say how fast or slow these conversations go, or else we're going to be repeating that same process of the first year, which is we get overloaded with a lot of information. We don't get to, this is the meat of the conversation, right?
Okay, Ivanka, your screen froze. But
to add for what we're going to do for next agenda. But this is really important, and to just say, well, because we need to move along, that's not how this has to continue. And it's also the difference between the types of structures that different committees of the 617 throughout the state have. Oakland could spend the rest of the night talking about a truck reroute because it's their committee. And that is how this committee wants to mold and become. We don't want this just to be led by the district. And Scott, the answer that you said to some of the questions of, we'll get back to you once the city and the air district have a discussion. No, this is the place where we have the discussion, not coming back with the information, because it's the committee that has the input that needs to decide how that discussion happens. So I'm not going to try to stop the whole meeting's agenda, but we need a pause and a reality check of how these meetings are going to play out from here on out.
Ivanka, I totally respect your perspective, and I agree that these meetings should serve this steering committee. So the one friendly amendment I would say is when we have a speaker like Laura, who's outside of this group, who comes to present to us, and she's waiting for her turn, I think it's, in an interest of being respectful of her time, we would always still give her the time on the agenda that we asked her to come and do this presentation. In regards to the air monitoring update and the incentives update, we can, as a group, decide to condense those to make them a lot shorter, or we can table some of that or both of them or whatever till another meeting if you guys as a group would like to, continue having this dialogue with Scott. So Naimeen, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna do a suggestion in terms of process. I agree that we shouldn't be rushing and trying to have these packed agendas. And I think that, we tried to give some feedback on the agenda, but it was kind of too late. This agenda was already published and all that. So I think that that's why we need to, as a group, decide what we want to prioritize and what is realistic, because we just have 2 hours and we don't want to be limited as of, oh, you shut up or go to the next question. I think we need to have meaningful discussions, but I also agree that we would need to be respectful with this person that is waiting. I'm okay giving her the floor, but I think what we need to do, and I would ask you to do it as the facilitator, to go over the items, and then as steering committee members, we can say which ones we're going to table for the next meeting, because we won't have time here, but that we're going to invest the time that we need for the important items in the agenda.
Of course.
And one more thing, I'm sorry. This is definitely a topic or part of this process that just needs its own subcommittee, period. And I don't know if Heather or Crystal can send out an interest for that later after this meeting, and who would want to be on a subcommittee for this.
Okay, it's noted, and I see Lisa's hand. Okay, so the agenda items that are in front of us, and again, it is your right completely. You're very, I totally hear you and respect your position. There's the air monitoring update that Brad is slated to do. There's the incentives update that Brian is going to do. Those both being done by Air District staff, it would be my recommendation that if we were to bump something, those would be better to bump than the energy efficiency program, just because we have Laura here and she's a guest. And the last thing on the agenda is the wrap up next steps, which is just sort of the meeting close piece. So I guess we could do a vote. There's quite a few people. There's 60 people on this Zoom meeting right now. So I guess let's see real quick, who would like to postpone the air monitoring update to a future meeting? Under your participants button, you should have a yes, no, and the yes, no would be a way to vote. Let me know if you don't see that. You can also chat with Hannah. She can help you via tech if you're having a hard time. So this is a yes, no on postponing the air monitoring.
If we have numbers on the phone, on your phone, you press star for yes.
Star for yes if you're just on the phone. And for, adhering to true process rules, typically the steering committee members themselves vote. I know there's other folks on here as well. We would ask that the steering committee members vote for this if possible. Okay. I'm seeing an overwhelming support for moving air monitoring forward to another meeting. Thanks for your flexibility, Brad. Do you guys want to move in the incentives update as well and really devote a lot of time to this? So again, we'll start over with yes, no. Hannah, is there a way to clear the vote?
Yeah, I just cleared the vote.
Oh, thank you. So now we're voting yes, no on whether we move the incentives update forward into a future meeting. This was Brian providing an update regarding the SERP initiative measures discussed in March, the school buses, heavy duty trucks, funding guidelines. This was a quick item, but I imagine it can move per Ivanka's perspective and point. Okay, this one's closer. So I'm seeing 7 yeses to move, 6 no's to move, that's closer than the air monitoring update. So if there is time after this discussion, I would suggest we pick up the incentives as well, time allowing, but I hear you that the majority of the steering committee wants to allow more time to have discussion with Scott on this really important issue. So let's go back to Scott. Thanks, Scott, for your flexibility. I think we were in the middle of questions from Naomi and Kimberly. You both had questions, I think, that were partially answered. Is there any else? Is that a no from Naomi? Okay. Go back to Kimberly. Do you have anything else you want to ask?
Crystal, I have another question. When the consultant is selected, would the steering committee be able to interview and ask questions of the consultant, and will we have a say on who will be picked?
And we have not yet talked about the process for the consultant selection. Let me just say, if we were to bring that before the steering committee, that will definitely extend the process. And you know, earlier I think in my responses about needing to touch bases with the Air District, they're just aspects of the process that we have not discussed. And as the City of Fresno, I cannot speak for the Air District on those elements because there is district approval required in terms of the funding, the co-op agreements, and the process that we go forward with.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. Thanks, Scott. So go ahead and raise your hand if you have additional questions for Scott. You can also submit any comments or questions or anything that you want recorded in the record via the chat box.
Ivanka, I see your hand next.
I just want to confirm when I was saying a subcommittee that I was referring to a subcommittee for a reroute study, the way we had a subcommittee for air monitoring. And Scott, when you had said, I was kind of on the fence. It's like, yeah, in-kind donation, 66,000 sounds great because we don't have a lot of money. Yet at the same time, the traffic counts coming from the same agency that wants to extend into the South Central industrial development does not sit well with me. So I've seen and been a part of the South Central priority area plan and seen how that is mostly ran by industry opinion on that advisory committee. So why would I want the city to give me and fudge numbers about that traffic study? I would suspect that it would be more transparent if the actual traffic counts came from the consultant. And we were told when I was in a meeting with Jennifer Clark, the district in CARB, that we were looking at needing around 500,000, not 200,000 to 300,000 to do a true complete truck route study. So to say that the little things that we're asking for will increase the cost, that's okay because you quoted 200 to 300, which is way less than what we thought we were going to need to begin with to include these details. So I just want to, I want the committee to understand my process of why that's just a little bit scary to hear that it's the city and not the consultant that's coming up with the numbers.
Let me add on that, whether the city administration or council liked the numbers that came out of counts, the counts are the counts. They're actually hose counts. I mean, it cannot be fudged. We would not want to fudge that. To me and my staff, our integrity is, important above all. We're licensed professionals and we do not fudge counts. So the way the city could provide those in-kind services is using our staff to lay out the counters and provide that data to the consultant. If we were not personally performing those, that would be a significant budget issue for the city. Because we're using our own staff, we'd be pulling them away from other functions. So there's not dollars sitting somewhere that's available. We're looking at maximizing the city's ability to contribute toward the study, just to be a partner.
Thanks, Scott.
Crystal, Scott, thank you very much for your response. As I hear people talk about 200,000 or 300,000 or $500,000, you guys know what I think about. What's the cost of a life? Here you guys talking about $200,000 or 300,000 bucks, and man, we know how many people done died along that corridor and are suffering right now. So again, Scott has expressed the will. I appreciate that, Scott, because you've expressed the will and desire to get this project done and to see that ordinance change, because we all know the truth. I've ridden over there. I seen the trucks barreling down Jensen Avenue from Marks to 41 in 3 minutes. And then I took the route, you know, out, of course, American or what have you, to 41, and it takes 12 minutes longer. This is all about efficiency for those manufacturers getting their product, you know, up the road quicker and at the cost of other people's lives. So again, I'm hearing from Scott what I need to hear, and from the city and from CARB, and that's the willingness and the desire to get this done, because that's where it all starts at. And I'm sure that you guys will find the funding. And I'm sure you guys will expedite this as quickly as possible. You know, my biggest thing right now is to start communicating to our community. Again, I can't communicate to the state or the nation, but if I can start to communicate to you guys the tremendous amount of pain and suffering that I feel, and I feel it because of my people in my community, in every ethnicity, the poor, that's what it is. You know, the people without enough backdoor clout, you know, that's what Ivanka's referencing, how these things really end up getting done in these industrial, you know, processes that's going on now. Is those industries have millions of dollars and bringing millions of tax dollars to the city, and we're willing to let them come in and do what they want and whatever. So that's the reality of the world. So I'm okay. So I just want to thank you, Scott. I want to thank the cardboard and everyone for having that desire and that will. So thank you very much, Crystal, for letting me express my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any hands.
I actually,
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Lisa. Lisa's waving, and then it looks like Ryan wants to jump in as well.
Oh, I was waving my hands because I couldn't find the little blue thing, doohickey. I gotta. First off, you know, thank you for coming under budget, Scott, or ballparking under budget, but I'm thinking it's going to cost you about $350 with all the add-ons. And you do need to go back to City Hall, and you do need to talk to who you need to talk to and tell them they need to listen to the community. They need to have the community involved, including picking the consultant, whether it's an RFP or if it's interviews, which would actually be way better, because you really do need the community input. My concern is, as we're going into a depression, you're going to have under-deflated numbers that are going to justify some of these routes staying where they're at. So my question to you is, how are you going to, what is your strategy going to be to make sure that the numbers adequately reflect what happens when we have a robust economy? Because right now, everything, you know, before, I would say March 11th, everything was, you know, roses and champagne. Now it's water out of a hose in someone's front yard. So what are your strategies going to be for this route study if you have deflated numbers because of the economy?
That's a very good question. We do have some historical traffic counts. They would not be suitable to support an environmental document, ordinance change, truck route change. That's why they would need to be recounted. You raise a very good question. What happens if the economy is not safely reopened in some manner that reflects the amount of residential or commercial industrial type traffic in the area? And, you know, unfortunately, one possible outcome, if we're not there, again, we'd have to look at this very, very carefully together. One possibility is then the study would wind up being delayed as a result. And that's something that a lot of agencies are struggling with. Whether, you know, whether someone wants to build a new residential subdivision somewhere in the city, or they want to have a whatever type of project. What happens if I don't have if I can't actually perform these environmental studies that accompany that.
So Scott, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, so we're laying this out, you know, optimistically and with an ambitious timeline, but that we would have to cross that bridge when we come to it, if that's indeed the case.
So I'm thinking you could do the numbers, right? You guys go out there, lay the little hoses across, you know, I used to know guys in traffic, love them. Anyway, but if the economy tanks and the numbers start to go down as far as truck traffic, could you switch your study over to handling the issues of what I call the environmental justice, the environmental pressures, the sidewalks, the health concerns, and that, and do a little bit more in-depth look while we're going through this like second, you know, let's be realistic, we're going to have a second shutdown. You know, instead of, you know, emphasize truck numbers, start looking at the community issues to start.
You know, as the city, I'll say that pedestrian safety, you know, bottlenecks, connectivity, all of those are very, very important to us. And that's a lot of what we did in the active transportation plan. The city is certainly open to conducting those types of studies and work, but I'm not sure if that's something that the AB 617 funds and the Air District, what our agreement, if that would be supported. So again, I'd have to defer to the district on that.
I'm actually going to look over to Ryan and then Vernon to jump in here before we continue, because I imagine they have stuff they could contribute to this. Ryan, you're on mute currently.
Sorry about that. So just to a couple of points, as far as a subcommittee, I think that's a good idea that we could definitely look to do. We're supportive of that concept and allowing the community steering committee to have that feedback into the process. We think that's good and it's important. The component, Scott, that you were talking about as far as like some other alternative type studies kind of outside the truck reroute, that's probably a larger discussion that we would have to have and more understanding of what that is. I mean, is it ancillary? Is it actually part of a truck reroute study, or is it something completely separate? You know, the thing to keep in mind on the studies themselves, or the study that was approved in the community emission reduction program, the commitment is that you know the funding will be there for the study. That's in the commitment. At the same time, we're actively looking for partners to help fund the study, and at the same time, it's got to go through what are called the Community Air Protection Grant process, which is ongoing right now, and we were going to discuss during the incentive program. It's a process that ARB has set up on how the different types of projects, they have to get approved by ARB so that funding can be applied to those. So I mean that'd be part of that, and then obviously any funding from us has to ultimately be approved by our board. So those are just a couple of the other components that I think are important to be brought up here.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm going to jump to Vernon.
Yeah, this is Vernon. So yeah, on the funding, as Ryan just mentioned, the CAP funding, yeah, community identified projects that are consistent with the SERP. That there's some important elements there, but as Ryan already mentioned, that's something that could be discussed more. I also wanted to touch on Ivanka's comment, essentially on representativeness. There was a traffic study. Is the data that would be collected representative of what's going on in the community? And I guess a question maybe for Scott would be, and maybe not to elaborate in so much detail here, but just something to consider. Are there surrogate data collection that is being conducted. That might be a tool to use whether or not the economy is back up into normal. We're having normal VMT in the region, and whether it would be timely to collect those data. So, are there surrogate data sets that are available that are historical that would help the committee and the city and the air district decide whether the study would be good to conduct over a certain period of time?
I just shared, we want to be good stewards of the dollars made available for the study, and any previous counts from things like I know the RTAP is the acronym for it, but essentially it's the same, roughly the same footprint as the South Central specific plan. Through those planning studies, those can be utilized. I know what those studies typically lacked are things like actual truck counts on specific corridors. So this would indeed be very focused. But I think, as you mentioned, surrogate sources of data and such. Yeah, we would work with the district. We'd work with the consultant and talk through with the steering committee those potential sources. And if we can save some dollars on that, and again free them up for implementation on other priorities in the community, that's a good thing. Back to the point even of the $500,000 for the study. Oh, I'm fully confident that we can scope a study that would go all the way up to the $500,000. But at the end of the day, if the goal is to change the truck routes and implement it, and if we can do so for 300 versus 500, don't we want to achieve the community benefit with that $200,000 savings in one of the other priorities this committee has laid out?
But we also want to address the committee concerns, and the committee's concerns is also denoting the health concerns along these truck routes. And unless you have a discussion, and unless you have some data in the truck route, it makes no justification for changing a truck route. Because we are trying to make a healthier community, are we not?
We are.
I see head nodding. Okay, we have about 1 more minute before we would be scheduled to move on to the last item, which was Laura's presentation about energy efficiency program. Any burning final questions that can't be delivered to Scott via chat? And someone, I see Sylvestra, Ivanka, Vernon, Isabel. Maybe we let this go just a few more minutes and then transition. Start with Sylvestra.
Yes.
And the interest would be brief, please,
yes,
if you don't mind.
Yes, there's so many collaborative things going along. There's so many collaborative things going along that corridor that could be coordinated and leveraged. As we talk about the health issues being added to the criteria, if Scott doesn't think that it prolongs it or gets out of the customary variables that are used to determine a rerouting, the health issues are a slam dunk, in terms of hardcore, data and information. In addition to that, you have the Cal EnviroScreen 3.0, data already there for that area, that we have projects going under already identifying those health issues. In addition, a couple of months ago or 3 months ago, I seen one of your surveyors from the city, I think it's from Public Works. He was out there along Jensen, getting the information you guys need, that you're working with Caltrans to resurface Jensen here coming soon. So we don't even know what that looks like in relation to some of the other activity going along there right now in terms of streetscape. You guys are probably talking about, just paving Jensen from 41 to Marks or Hughes, but are you guys talking about improving the streetscape and the natural barriers and what have you as you're doing that? So again, that's another subject, but all sorts of things are going on, and the various agencies, if they leverage and collaborate, I think we can be more effective.
Okay, as we're winding down on this discussion, I want to prioritize comments and questions from those folks who haven't asked any questions of Scott or made any comments on this issue. So I don't think we've heard from Isabel, Aurelia, or Bill, and I see all their hands up. So if you don't mind being brief, but please jump in. We'll start with Isabel.
Okay, Isabel, you're on mute.
No.
Go ahead.
Ok. Tengo dos preguntas. Una de ellas es acerca de las regulaciones. Hay una persona de la comunidad que dice que todo el tiempo tiene una vecina que todo el tiempo está, en los fines de semana, quemando mucho. Todo el día y la mayor parte de la noche, y hace mucho humo. Ha llamado a la ciudad para
Bueno, Isabel.
¿Sí?
Ok, se cortó la llamada un poco. Nomás escuché algo de las regulaciones y que tiene una vecina que tiene preguntas acerca de, o que quiere hacer quejas acerca de alguien que está quemando.
Sí, en fines de semana quema mucho durante todo el día y en la noche, mayor parte de la noche, y echa mucho humo y huele muy mal. Ya ha llamado a la ciudad y la ciudad no hace nada. Entonces me dice a quién tiene que recurrir para que hagan algo.
Eso sería algo que se podría comunicar con nuestras oficinas y podemos mandar a un inspector. Ryan también nos puede ayudar en esa manera. Ryan está en línea, pero él nos podría ver cómo se dice poner un inspector para poder ir a esa área a ver qué es lo que está pasando, porque ya no deben de estar quemando. She's just asking about regulations and that she has a neighbor in their area that is burning stuff over the weekend, creating a lot of smoke in the area, and that they filed complaints with the city, but haven't really gotten much information. So basically, I've just answered and said that we could send out an inspector. She would need to call our district offices. And I did mention Ryan Hayashi's name and said that he would be willing to get an inspector to go out and look at the area.
Yeah, you can also give her my information and well, give her Loopy's information directly, and then he can assist her with that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Isabel, después de esta línea yo le hablo para atrás y le dejo saber el número. También a otra persona que quisiera les puedo dar el número de teléfono directo de Lupe Jauregui, que él es uno de los supervisores en ese departamento que les podría ayudar en español. ¿Y tenía otra pregunta?
Oh, sí. En las tardes aquí por donde yo vivo, en una esquina, hay un carro que todo el tiempo anda dando vueltas y vueltas, así quemando llantas, así en alrededor, vuelta y vuelta y vuelta, y igual hace mucho humo, mucho ruido, y así. Y no sabemos qué hacer también con eso.
Ok, déjeme ver. Voy a preguntarle a Ryan a ver si es algo que podemos hacer en nuestra agencia. Ok, un momento. Her second question had to do with also in her area, they do notice that there is a vehicle that does donuts and is creating a lot of emissions from that. And she basically wants to know who would she need to contact for that. And I'm not sure if that would be something that we would handle, Ryan.
It wouldn't fall under our jurisdiction, but what we definitely can do is we can look into that and find out who the responsible agency would be, and then look to connect her with them.
Okay. Isabel, él menciona de que nosotros no seríamos la agencia que podría responder a esto, pero lo que vamos a hacer es de que vamos a verificar quién es la persona y luego les dejamos saber con quién se puede comunicar.
Está bien, muchas gracias.
Okay. Gracias, Isabel. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Aurelia.
Sí, buenas tardes. Yo lo que quiero comentar es de que este estudio del cual estamos hablando en este momento, la sugerencia es de que este estudio debe de ser colectivo entre la comunidad y el comité para asegurar que este estudio va a reflejar las preocupaciones que tiene la comunidad y que también el trabajo de los consultores debe ser coordinado y que se debe trabajar de una manera coordinada los consultores junto con la comunidad para asegurar que ahí en este estudio estén las preocupaciones y las voces de la gente de la comunidad afectada y no sea nada más un estudio que estén pensando dentro de una oficina o entre los consultores y el equipo de planeación de la ciudad piensen que es lo mejor para la comunidad, ¿no? Entonces, en términos de lo que es el proceso de cómo se va a realizar, también asegurar que la comunidad va a estar involucrada en este proceso de planeación, porque ya sabemos históricamente que siempre ha pasado este proceso de planeación, pero que solamente quienes planean son los de la ciudad, sin consultar y sin escuchar a la comunidad, ¿no? Entonces, durante este proyecto que se está haciendo, lo que quiero decir es de que debemos de asegurar que la participación de la comunidad está ahí presente y también durante el proceso, ¿no? Que podamos también tener esa oportunidad de elegir y ver quiénes serían los que harían quiénes serían los consultores, ¿no? Es lo que quiero comentar.
Okay, gracias, Oralia. Okay, basically, Oralia is just relating to the study. She wants to make sure that the city is aware that this needs to be, that the members of the public need to be heard. The community members are important and that they need to be at the table to be able, to have their comments, their suggestions be heard and not just be something that the city has agreed to do and basically it's just a city decision. So they want to make sure that their voice is heard, that that the public and that the community is at the table and able to, be able to provide information and be at the table to just have that discussion with the city, if that makes sense.
And the city agrees 100% with that. There would be numerous public meetings with the study.
Okay, Aurelia dice que con este estudio que sí va a haber muchas oportunidades de poder van a haber como talleres para poder recibir esa información de los miembros del público, de la comunidad.
Bueno, eso y lo importante va a ser que los escuchen y que sí sean tomados en cuenta, ¿no? O sea, que el proceso sea de que no nada más dicen vamos a hacer la reunión y al final tenemos una mesa que finalmente lo va a aprobar y que aunque la comunidad haya dicho eso y si no es aprobado por la mesa, entonces desde ahorita, ¿no? O sea, que sea valorado ese proceso, esas opiniones que da la comunidad y que sean tomadas en cuenta y que no queden fuera después de que cuando tengan que llegar a una mesa directiva o algo así, que son quienes tienen que aprobar esto.
Okay, so basically she's saying that she also wants to make sure that their voice is heard and not just heard, but actually taken into account and into consideration and being valued versus just being, just kind of a message and that nothing gets done with it. So that make sure that if we go to the table that it is heard and that it is respected and valued.
Thank you, Aurelia and Mari. Last but not least, I'm going to have Phil do his final comment or the final comment, and then we are going to move on to Laura's presentation.
Okay, I just wanted to mention a few factors that maybe haven't been considered, but for example, it was mentioned to move traffic to American to go east and west. We have with 41 and 99, a lot of trucks have to connect from one to the other. Well, American Avenue has been closed for probably over 4 years for high-speed rail to build a overpass over for their high-speed rail project. Therefore, to go from Maple to Cedar, it's not possible. So as high-speed rail continues to grow to the south, well, then this becomes more of a problem because it puts an added burden on, you know, the other streets that were mentioned, for example, like Jensen and North Avenue. And then some of the other committee meetings that I've been involved with is, you know, people in the country, you know, they particularly don't like, you know, the truck traffic going in there on their streets that aren't really designed for trucks. But when you close down east-west routes such as American, and if they're allowed to shut that down for like over 4 years, it really puts a strain on Jensen and North Avenue, plus Adams and all the others. And then the other factor to consider in this is my understanding, well, we had a person come in from Caltrans several months ago, and it was expressed that they were going to improve the interchanges at North and 99, American at 99, and Central and 99. So by improving those interchanges, and if the city doesn't plan to widen the streets or add lanes or something like that, that's going to complicate the traffic in that area even more. So I just wanted to bring up a few of those points to be considered. We don't have to go into them now, but that does put a burden on, all these factors put some added burden on I assume is it Jensen and North Avenue, the streets in contention, or are there others involved? Maybe we could get a list from the community about the problematic areas that maybe we could help come up with some solutions.
That's an excellent action item, Bill. Thank you so much. And Scott, thank you for your patience in answering and your knowledge. And this is clearly a really important topic to everyone, or most of us here on this steering committee. But so I definitely think this is an issue we should consider for future meetings. And potentially, I hear you, Ivanka, with a subcommittee for reroute studies specifically. But I want to respect the fact that we do have another speaker who's a guest. And we're a little over time, but I want to turn it over to Laura. She's going to do a quick, perhaps abbreviated, but still very incredibly important presentation on energy efficiency programs. So Laura, if you don't mind sharing your screen.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I will try to do my best to get through this quickly. I really appreciate everyone's time tonight. And I thank you so much to Valley Air District and to everyone here for letting us be on your agenda. Just for a bit of clarification, we're not actually an energy efficiency program. This is a pilot study that's been ordered by the state that's taking place here in Fresno. And it's a really unique program that pays people in particular parts of South Central Fresno to basically reduce energy when there's high need or even air quality issues. So I want to first introduce myself. I'm Laura Mamish. I'm with Olivine. Olivine is an energy services and technology firm in Berkeley, and we've been around for a while. We run lots of large programs for the state and cities and counties doing demand response and other kinds of renewable energy focused programs. And I also want to mention really quickly that there's two other people here from Olivine. Basuda Latte, she's the program manager for Fresno Energy Program, and Beth Reed, who is our CEO. And she's actually a board member of the Coalition for Clean Air. And you probably already know about that, but they're an advocacy organization that's been advocating for clean air for decades. So they're very active, and we're really excited to be involved with them. We were also, I think, I'm not sure if he's here, but we were going to get our PG&E program manager, Sebastian Sapo, but I'm not sure if he's here, and he's the one providing us with a lot of direction and guidance on this program. So I'm going to try and go really fast. I know that there's Spanish interpretation, and I apologize if things get a little bit jumbled, but I just want to let you know really quickly before I jump in that Olivine is the implementer for this pilot. It is sponsored by PG&E, so it's paid for by PG&E, and they provide us with a lot of direction and guidance, but we are the ones that are implementing this program here in Fresno, and that's our role for this. So I want to give you a little bit of background, and then I want to get into what is the program and sort of like why we're here tonight. And essentially, you know, this slide says it all. In 2018, the Public Utilities Commission recognized that there's a significant problem. And that is that these gas peaker plants, and there's a number of them in California, are located in or near disadvantaged communities. And these peaker plants, I don't know how familiar you are with them, but they're plants that don't run all the time. So they're only on, you know, during times of high energy or electricity demand. Like, so think about the summer when everyone's running their ACs, or, you know, the evening hours. And starting up these peaker plants it's very energy intensive. It actually produces a lot of emissions, a lot of pollution. And so what's happening here is the Public Utilities Commission is trying to basically close down all of these plants, because a lot of this pollution falls really close to, within a 5 to 10 mile radius is where most of the pollution lands in these disadvantaged communities. So their decision, their solution was to order the 3 investor-owned utilities, PG&E is one of them, of course, to fund a study in each of their territories, examining to what extent disadvantaged communities can participate and benefit from demand response programs. And demand response, basically just another form of renewable energy that, you know, can provide grid resilience and also, you know, provide decarbonization. So moving on, this is a familiar map, I'm sure, to most of you. The red, I'm sure you're all very familiar with the California EPA's SB 350 maps of disadvantaged communities. So you already probably know that in South Central Fresno, those disadvantaged communities are the top 5%. So they're the 5% highest scoring for pollution and hardship. So the green outline is, of course, your program. It's AB 617 boundaries. And the blue outlines are the Fresno Energy Program boundaries. These are zip codes that are in our target area. And there's an overlap there, and that's not an accident, that was on purpose. We wanted to make sure that we could, you know, cover the same areas, of course, that are definitely in need of air quality improvements, because one of the things we hope will happen if we have a successful study is that we'll expand this program throughout Fresno. And then, of course, that would have, you know, great impacts on air quality. And then, of course, also the Public Utilities Commission wanted us to, you know, combine our resources for learnings and so on, outreach. So the goals of the program are pretty clear. And this is actually direct, a lot of this is coming from the Public Utilities Commission in terms of what they really want to have happen. And what we're trying to study in this program in Fresno is understanding how able and willing are residents to participate in demand response. You know, how is this something that they would value? Is it something they're able to do? You know, there's so many different factors. I won't go into them, but that's a really critical one that is always discussed, and nobody really knows the answer to this. The second is their energy use. How do they use energy? How much energy do they use? What are the ways in which they use energy? Are they able to reduce energy when needed? That's a really critical component as well. Outreach, how do we reach them, you know, with different languages, different levels of access to technology and so on. What kind of messages resonate? You know, what do they really respond to? What motivates people? And then what benefits are meaningful? And then I have there at the bottom of the slide that, of course, the results are used for program design that will be used in other disadvantaged communities and also expanding this program in Fresno. I want to just briefly say that the Olivine community is part of Olivine. It's a broader offering. We have a number of programs throughout the state, and the essential approach for the Olivine community is to aggregate all the resources. So energy resources, we're talking, you know, large commercial, industrial, public, residential, to really provide grid resilience and also spread the benefits throughout the community. So it's not just concentrated among certain large players, right? And like I said, we have a number of programs here, and I won't waste your time by going through all of them, but just so you know, the Fresno Energy Program is only residential. So we're not combining with any other, you know, sectors of the community. It's just focused on residents of Fresno. So what are the benefits of participation? I just want to tell you, like, what do people get out of joining and enrolling into this program? Well, they get money, they get paid, and actually they get paid pretty well. Because what we're trying to do is learn from them and have them teach us and take those learnings and use them to design better programs and to also demonstrate that this is needed, this is beneficial. So that's one benefit. The second is hopefully, you know, saving energy and learning about saving energy, and I'll get to more of that in a minute. There's also a way for them to learn about free and reduced cost programs that are available, you know, through PG&E. And it's not, I want to be clear here that it's, when I say learn about it, it's really public programs we're talking about. There's no private selling of anything that's going on, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Of course, impact on air quality, we want to show people what their actions do in terms of helping air quality and contributing to the community, being part of, you know, something that's happening in the community. So how are rewards earned? How do people earn these rewards? So I just want you to know, really, this chart lays it all out. I don't want to, again, take up too much time, but people get paid for various actions. They take surveys that tell us how they use energy in their home. What was it like reducing energy, you know, at the end of the program? What was their experience in demand response? Would they want to continue in demand response? You know, what are their suggestions? What's their feedback? So we want to hear from people. We want to know, you know, what works for them and how we can provide, you know, really powerful package, you know, that benefits everybody. In here, you'll see in the middle is what we call energy savings events. And these are events that happen through the course of a year. So this program has a definite start and end time, and then once it's over, it's over. But during that time, we'll have about 20 energy saving events. And so it's 1 or 2 per month, and they're about an hour to 2. So it's not a lot. And during that time, we will send out notifications to people and ask them to, you know, just do simple actions. And anything counts. There's no bar. You don't have to reduce a certain amount or anything like that. We just really want to see if people are able to participate, to take those actions is the main thing. And then there's also a referral bonus. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that at the end, but we're also going to have a promo starting on Friday that pays people $20 just for enrolling. So we do these periodically, and we have one that's for the last 2 weeks of May. So from Friday to the end of May. So who can enroll, right? Who's eligible? We have the 8 zip codes that are listed up here. And I think I saw that Jamie made the slide deck available to people. So, and at the end, I have our website too. You have to live in one of these zip codes, very important. So it's not enough to just, you know, have a friend who lives there, you actually have to live there. You need to have access to the internet, either through your smartphone, tablet, computer, and this is required because we interact with the members of the program through a mobile application. And they need to have access to their PG&E account. So they need to, you know, get a PG&E bill or be able to, you know, they're the ones paying the, you know, PG&E bill, and they can get access to that information. During the enrollment process, they will need to either log in or create an online PG&E account. Anyway, it's very simple, but I'll get to more about that in a minute. And then finally, not be enrolled in another demand response program. So there's a few out there, and that creates a conflict. And unfortunately, you know, we can't enroll people who are already in another program. So super important, because these questions get asked all the time whenever we talk about this program. What does this program not do? So there's a lot of things it doesn't do. It does not change a person's electricity service, their provider, or rates. This is not, you know, an alternative energy provider. It doesn't change anything about that. It's literally, you're just joining a study, and we're just able to see, you know, what are you doing? That's it. It doesn't increase your electric bill. This was baked into the design process to really make sure that this was not going to happen. It does not require people to buy anything or pay anything. It's a completely free program. And it does not commit anyone to reducing home electricity use when asked. Even if you join and you enroll in the program, if it's not convenient, there's a little survey when we ask people, can you join? No, why? Oh, okay, fine. There's no penalty whatsoever. And then we do not make this information public or share it to businesses or use it to sell people anything. This information is kept private and used for internal purposes only for the study. So we have this mobile app. It's called the Olivine Community app. It's available in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. We have a web application, and it's in 3 languages, Spanish, English, Chinese. And it's really easy. It takes about 5 minutes to enroll on. These are the main screens that you'll see. At the end, you are required to connect to PG&E, and that is to be able to share your meter data with the app so you can see your home energy use, which is kind of cool. We have a bunch of videos on YouTube and on Facebook that show people how to do all this. We also have live customer support in English and Spanish. So we have tons of resources able to help people, because I know this can be a bit of a barrier. It can seem a bit confusing. And this is what you will see once you're in the app and you have your meter data showing up. So you get to see your energy use history, daily, weekly. When did you, use the most energy? When did you use the least? The app is how we notify people of energy savings events. And energy savings events are sometimes used, we're gonna have a number of signals. There will be times of high energy demand on the grid. And there will also be times when we'll use air quality signals as well to trigger an event. So there's going to be some learnings in there, which will be really fascinating. And then also track your performance, see how much money you've made, how much energy you reduced, and what the impact on air quality was by you and also by the whole program. So we're really, really lucky to have a number of great partners here in Fresno. And I'm just putting this slide up to just show you some of our partners, just to let you know that we're really working hard to try and get this program to all the different populations. Fresno is incredibly diverse and rich city and community, and there's so many different populations. And this is just a few of the ones that we have up here. And of course, Valleyers there. I'm really grateful to have them as for support and assistance. So, okay, all of this is to say we still really need help. Before, like early March, we were all ready to roll out some in-person enrollment events. We had a bunch planned with Fresno Housing and Earth Day and so on. And of course, you all know everything changed. And so this has left us in a place where we really have to rely on our partners and their communications channels, since we can't no longer be there in Fresno in person, unfortunately. So we're just trying to get to our enrollment goal, which is 2,500 households, and we're quite short of that, mainly because we just haven't been able to get out to people. And I'm hoping that you'll see that this program is beneficial, not just for individuals that you may be working with, but just for Fresno, as a whole. This money is PG&E's money, and if it doesn't get spent in Fresno, it stays with PG&E. So it would be great if we could get that money spent in Fresno. So we have a number of promotional materials in digital form, printed form, English and Spanish that we can make available for social media, email, what have you. If you have any thoughts or any ideas about ways like you could work with us or that we could, get out to people, we would love to hear from you. If you are doing any public meetings to your groups, or of any that we might be able to hop onto even for a few minutes, or just give you a couple slides to present, that would be phenomenal too. And then we're on Facebook, so like us, follow us, all that stuff that you hear all the time about social media. We will be posting a fair bit of content on there. And then finally, and this is the bonus referral, is that we have this benefit or reward, I should say, that if someone who's enrolled in the program refers a friend or neighbor or what have you that also enrolls in the program, they get $20. And here on the screen that you see, how did you hear about our program, is actually the last screen in the enrollment step in our mobile app, where you get to choose from a drop-down or enter a name of a person or organization. And so if someone names your organization, then that's $20 for your organization, and we write a check to your organization. And we have one more, and for some reason there it is. Okay, and so thank you so much. I know that this is your dinner time, so this is my last slide. We were originally going to have enrollment through June, but now we're extending it to September, and here's our website. please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. Our principal contact is Vasuda Latte. She's our program manager, but you can also contact me, Laura, and I'd love to, hear from anyone and get any thoughts or ideas and see how we can work together. Thank you again.
Thank you, Laura. That was super helpful and informative. I see 2 hands up right now. I'll go to Jamie and then to Lisa.
I just wanted to chime in and let you all know that it wasn't light. We didn't just throw this on because, we thought it was a good program. We do think it's a good program, but it also, the energy efficiency stuff was one of the SERP strategies and was one that always scored fairly high when we did the prioritization. Also, I wanted to test this to make sure it was legitimate. I happen to live in this zip code. It was super easy to do, and within like 48 hours, I got a little Visa digital gift card back for, I think it was $30 for the just for signing up. It legitimately came through. So I just wanted people to know that everything that they've set up to actually pay people to participate actually does work. So yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Jamie. Lisa? You're on mute. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, can she send me some information? Because I have like, a list of like 800 people that I could actually reach out and contact by like Saturday. Wow. Just to start, okay? The other thing is regarding your app, is it ADA friendly for the blind?
Oh, that's a really great question. And unfortunately, no, it is not. But that is a really, really good point. Yeah.
Because I have a friend that would like love this, and his Rolodex, girl, let me tell you, it is friggin' amazing. He won't even let me near it. And so what about low income and people that don't have access to the internet? Is this, because some of the communities that you are tapping into, because of, the whole economics that we're currently in, some of the first things that go are internet and all that. So how would this be helpful? It's kind of.
Right. That's a great question. So if they have a phone that gets email on there and they're able to download an app, all they need to do is be able to receive email on their phone. If they have no phone, no computer, no electronics at all, then unless they have a friend or someone that,
or the library when they open it.
Or a shared computer. So like at Fresno Housing, they have like a computer room and there are shared computers. You just need to make sure you log out. But anyway, yeah.
I have another question about access. So do you have people that can assist potential participants in other languages other than English, like Spanish, like Hmong, that at least are the very minimum here for the city of Fresno?
Yeah, we have Spanish. We do not have Hmong, but we have Spanish customer support. And the reason we don't have Hmong is simply because the study wasn't large enough. Unfortunately, didn't have the funds to do all of that. But yes, we do have Spanish customer support, both over phone and email.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, this looks like something that will be very interesting and potentially very beneficial to a lot of folks on this Zoom meeting. Thank you, Laura, so much for your time tonight. Okay, so we are, quick time check, right at the end. But we had a few more things we just wanted to do in a fairly abbreviated wrap up. I do want to ask participants on this Zoom meeting if you have any future agenda items that you want to suggest, anything that you haven't already voiced today, please send those either through the chat box right now, or you can send an email to the Air District after the meeting, or reach out or give a phone call. Let us know what you would like the agenda to look like, not just for the next meeting in June, but for looking forward for several meetings ahead, just to give the Air District and other presenters time to prepare adequately. So thank you. Thank you.
Can we add the issue of stipends, because no one's really talked about it.
That.
Okay, thank you.
That you said stipends. So stipends, I was going to go to Jamie next to talk about the steering committee membership, and then Vernon, heads up. I was going to ask if there was any update on CARB's direction to area districts regarding stipends. Lisa, you anticipate me. So Jamie, if you could just go a really quick membership update.
Yes, we are at 44 members, but we still are short 5 residents. And I want to personally thank Ivanka and Naimeen and a handful of other people that have been really working to see if we can get more residents on board. We had kind of a strategy that we're working towards in March that included going back to schools and talking at community centers and presenting at some events that we had scheduled. And of course that all kind of got derailed, but we're looking at putting some more money into social media to get people involved. If you have any other suggestions on how we can get new residents on board, we would love to hear that. We are going to reach out to some of our faith-based partners to see if they might have people that are interested, and any other ideas we would love. The whole face-to-face kind of recruitment isn't working, so some of this is going to be phone calls and emails.
Thanks, Jamie. And thanks everyone again for all your efforts and your future efforts in getting more.
Can I ask a quick question about adding new members? Is there an age limit? You know, like teenagers, it's fine, like high schoolers, is that okay?
Teenagers are fine, but if they're under 18, we just want some type of, it can be an email, it can be a handwritten note saying, I, the parent or guardian of teenager XYZ, approve that in his or her involvement in this committee. So 100% okay. We just want to make sure their guardian or parents are aware that they're participating.
Okay, thank you.
And we have a high schooler on the Stockton steering committee, so there's precedent there. Any other questions about the committee membership makeup? Okay, not seeing any. Vernon, if you have one, can you provide any update on where CARB is on the issue of stipend?
On stipend guidance, yeah. CARB is currently we're working through the EJ subgroup of the consultation group and with the districts on drafting just a general, it's really a one-pager document on stipend guidance. And so our EJ team, Veronica Edie staff is currently working on setting up a consultation group meeting. This may be part of that agenda. In any case, we're trying to get that guidance out quickly, targeting the end of this month. So yeah, that is in progress.
Thanks, Vernon. So there's more to come, and I love seeing all the participation tonight and in future meetings. We will definitely be noting who all is here. So if the guidance requires, attending a certain number of meetings, obviously we'll have a record of all of your participation tonight. So more to come. Lisa, you look like you have a question.
Oh, you know me, I always have questions. Don't forget, I need a list of the meeting dates in a hard copy form that I think it would be very beneficial for all the committee to get the handouts at least 2 or 3 days ahead of the meeting so we can all read it, because I think that will also help expedite the meetings as well and will get us more succinct with our questions. And I also think that the stipend needs to be retro.
So I can't speak to how that will be handled, but CARB is
I just want to voice my opinion.
Yeah, they are here listening to that perspective, and I do agree presentation materials sooner is better. I did notice that the Air District was able to post them on the website. I think I saw them yesterday. I don't know when they went up, but we definitely will follow up with folks in paper form or digital form as soon as possible. Okay, the last
no digital
order
form.
of
No, seriously, no digital form. You need to go paper.
Sorry, before you do your last thing, really quickly, to Lisa's point, we were trying to continue with our second Wednesday of the month but noting that in June, I believe the second Wednesday conflicts with the TCC meeting. So we will amend that, but to Lisa's point, we'll put a schedule out on our website and then get the hard copies to those that need it for future meetings so everyone can plan ahead, making sure that next meeting is not on that same TCC meeting day.
Right. Thanks, Jess. Okay, and the last order was, while we are, looking at having these meetings virtually, we wanted to do a quick pulse check with this group to see what the right time is. I know a lot of us are doing this call right now from home. I, for one, hear my 4-year-old losing his crackers outside of the door. So we just wanted to see what is the best timing. So Hannah's going to do a very quick poll, as long as the tech works, and that this timing would, advise the Air District on what time works for the virtual setting. Again, the hope is that we are able to return to in-person meetings at some point, but I know it's been mentioned several times here. We just don't know exactly when that will be. So Hannah, do you want to take it away?
I would love to, but you're still a host, so you have the control of the polling buttons.
And Crystal, I do have 2 more comments to make. I've been raising my hand, both in the screen and like this, and I've been ignored, so.
Naimeen, please go ahead.
So, couple of things, and this is regarding Lisa's point in the materials. It is not realistic that we send that link to the Spanish documents to the participants at the moment that they're in the meeting. Even myself, I have trouble opening 3 different screens. So that's not gonna cut it. We need to send them the materials ahead of time because they were asking like, where can I see the material in Spanish? It's not enough to have the listening thing. You need to have the materials, and they cannot be sent in a link because many were in their phones. So that's not doable. That's not realistic. The second thing, I think Ivanka sent earlier, or not this week, but last week, I can remember, an email asking if there could be a possibility of vetting the agendas with all the steering committee. We can decide at the end of the meeting, building like 5 minutes to either through the chat or verbally express some of the topics we think should be in the next meeting. But then, even at the beginning of the meeting, it's like, this is a proposed agenda. Is everybody okay, or what are we missing? So that we are building that list of things that are like, if we don't have the time to review them today, that we have already like a list of things that we know we need to discuss for future meetings. Many meetings start with agenda review, right? And then you vote on the agenda. So we have not practiced that.
We haven't. And so again, this is an evolution. I think there's a couple of things. Vetting the agenda, like actual in a discussion forum with the whole group, might be logistically tricky to do, but I am committed to continuing with the community co-host. That community co-host has been, you have been one as well, has worked hand in hand with the Air District to develop that agenda. So that is one thing we'd like to do before we end this meeting, is to see if there's a volunteer. Since we had someone from the business side tonight, it's a balance. I think it would be nice to have someone volunteer to be the community co-host in June from the EJ side or the advocacy side. If you are interested in being that role in June, please, send in a comment here, raise your hand, voice up. But to get to your point, yes, I do think that these meetings will be most productive and less stressful and anxiety ridden if they serve everyone, right? So to the degree that it is feasible, I think the agenda needs to be flexible to adapt to what folks really need to talk about, but recognizing that there is a lot of work that goes into preparing presentations and finding the right people and the right speakers to be in the room. And so if there's a topic that, at the start of a meeting, someone says, I really want to focus on that issue, like this one specific issue tonight, in all fairness, the Air District may or may not be ready to talk about that right then. If they can, awesome, but if they can't, I think it's important to note that item and then prioritize it for, a future meeting. Does that sound like a kind of balance? I see some head nods. Okay. So again, if there are any people who want to be a community co-host and help develop the agenda, please throw out your name. and if everyone, please, if you have any agenda items that you would like to see on June's or July's or August, or, you know, we got years of this, please send those, you know, suggestions in as well. So we are a little over time.
Hey, Crystal, I will volunteer to co-host the next AB 617 steering committee meeting.
Because Kimberly, I don't think you've done it yet. So
No, I haven't.
You're top of my list, people who haven't done it on that side of the house. So awesome. Thank you so much. We'll follow up with you after this. I'm going to see if this poll thing works. Did I hear a name? No. Okay. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Here, it hasn't been filled out. So, you know what? I think, okay, so I'm going to, sorry.
Excuse me, I have one last thing. For future meetings, when all the shelter in place is lifted and you guys are all meeting again and everything's nice and hunky-dory, I can't come to meetings until there's a vaccine, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Because of, basically because of how bad my heart is. So, you know, I basically am in confinement for, well, until they have a vaccine. So if you guys start meeting, like your last meeting that you had, that I didn't get the documents for and I couldn't really participate even though I was watching it, you need to keep that in mind as well, okay? Thank you.
Yes, I hear you. Okay, sorry, I'm rapidly filling this up. Okay.
So Crystal is trying to launch the poll. It's a 2 question, very simple. Let's see if technology works. If technology cooperates with us, and it takes about 30 seconds to take a poll, so we're almost done with the meeting.
So the questions there, let's go back. Okay. Thanks for your patience.
And the questions are not in Spanish, but with the help of the translator, our Spanish-speaking participants can answer these questions too, because the answers are just numbers. So thank you for translating those questions on the fly, Reina.
Where are the questions located at?
They should be popping up on your screen. Do you see those?
No.
Huh.
It says poll in progress at the top and I don't see.
So I see that some people are voting.
You have to touch the poll. I got it.
Great.
Awesome. We'll just give this a little bit more. And again, if, you know, this is probably just our virtual meeting time availability. And we'll have to go back and look and see the results and make sure that the majority works for the steering committee members themselves, prioritizing them. But thanks for hanging in there tonight with us. I know we're a little over time. I apologize.
I just want to say hi, Ed. Hi, Eric. Hi, Ivanka. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Kimberly. Hi, everybody. It's been so long. Anyway, I'll see you guys.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right. Are we done?
There's one more question.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm just going to stop it here. Okay, so it looks like the majority of folks still prefer this time. We'll work with the Air District to analyze, make sure we get the right composition of results. But for now, thank you so much for your time tonight. I know there's a lot of things happening in the world, and we really appreciate your dedication and passion and energy on this really important issue. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a great evening.
Good night, everyone. Stay
Thanks for a
safe.
great meeting.
My internet wasn't working.